This week is conference championship week, which means that after this weekend, we will know who the 4 teams are that will be competing for the national championship. So many teams control their own destiny this week. Other teams, they need some chaos to happen. They need some help from other teams. So, without further ado, let's get to my conference championship picks. Now, I predicted the 6 important conference championship games that are going to matter to not only the college football player, but the New Year's 6. Like I've got the Power 5s, Pac-12, Big 12, SEC, AC, Big 10. And I also got the American Athletic Conference Championship game because that one's going to matter because the winner of that one is going to get the automatic New Year's 6 bowl bid for being the highest ranked Group of 5 conference championship team. So without further ado, let's get to those 6 picks. Now, I'm going to start with the Pac-12 because that's on Friday night. The Stanford Cardinals are taking on the USC Trojans. This is a rematch from Week 2 earlier this season, and USC just dominated Stanford on all sides of the ball. But I see this game this time around being a lot closer. Not only is it going to be on a neutral site this time, let's also be aware that out of all the conference championship games there are in college football this weekend, all but 2 of them are rematches from the regular season. So let's keep that in mind. I will be shocked if even one of these conference championship games are more of a blowout than they were in the regular season. Like for this one, Stanford USC. USC dominated on all sides of the ball. And I think this game's going to be a lot close this time around. But the truth is I'm still picking USC to win. I know Stanford's got, in what arguably some people say is the best running back in college football in Bryce Love. But I just can't see anybody else on Stanford stepping up other than Bryce Love. So I like the Trojans to win, but I don't think it's going to be in a blowout fashion. I think maybe USC maybe win by 1 or 2 touchdowns. Although I wouldn't be surprised if Stanford won the game, but I just can't bet against the Trojans right now, especially bet against Sam Darnold or bet against Ronald Jones at running back. I feel like I just can't bet against the USC offense. So I'm going with the Trojans. Not a blowout victory. I'm going to say USC wins by, at the very most, probably 14 this time around. I believe USC won in Week 2. I believe that was 42-24. So I see it being close this time around. The American Athletic Conference. The Memphis Tigers taking on the Central Florida Golden Knights. Now, this is going to determine a New Year's 6 bowl bid. It's going to determine who will go to New Year's 6 as being the highest ranked Group of 5 conference championship team. Now, Central Florida and Memphis played each other earlier this season, and Central Florida came out on top 40-13. Now, I see this being close on 40-13 this time around because this Memphis team, it's really underrated because Memphis' only loss is to this Central Florida team. And with Riley Ferguson at quarterback, who's, in my opinion, a very underrated quarterback in college football, and they got Anthony Miller, who's also one of the top wide receivers in all of college football, which nobody's really talking about him because it's a Group of 5 conference. But I just don't think it's going to be enough. I see this being a high-scoring game. I think Central Florida wins another close one like they did last week against South Florida. I think it might almost be in some type of fashion. I could see this being a who has the ball last type of deal. But I think Central Florida's defense will make a key stop in the fourth quarter to give the Knights the victory and the spot in the New Year's 6. The Big 12 championship game now. The TCU Horned Frogs take on the Oklahoma Sooners. And last time these 2 teams faced off, the Sooners dominated the Horned Frogs. But this time, I see it being a little bit closer. But I just can't bet against Baker Mayfield right now. Just everything that Baker Mayfield's done this season, it's like really hard to go against him right now. That Oklahoma offense is the most lethal offense in college football right now. And think about this. Back in June, even before Bob Stoops announced the retirement, shockingly, this was days before, I had Oklahoma as my number one preseason team for a reason, and that was solely based on Baker Mayfield being a Heisman hopeful. And right now, Baker Mayfield, he's just balling out on everybody. And it's really hard to bet against Baker Mayfield. If there was any of these conference championship games this week, I know I just said that I'd be surprised if even one of these games were won by a team by a bigger margin in the regular season. It would be this one, to tell you the truth. Because it's just hard to bet against Baker Mayfield based on what he's done and how much of a hot streak Oklahoma's been on. They responded very well ever since the upset loss at home to Iowa State. They may have had to grind it out against Kansas State and Texas, but after that, they have just responded week after week after week. I'm taking the Sooners in this one. The SEC championship game, Georgia versus Auburn. Now, there isn't a particular conference championship game of the week, but this one is the definite one that is a win-you're-in situation. Because most likely the committee on Tuesday night is going to put Georgia and Auburn, Georgia, whatever you want, at 4-5. So this is the definite win-and-you're-in type of situation. So that's why, for those who noticed, the Georgia and Auburn, that's the thumbnail this week, is Nick Chubb on the left side and Jarrett Stidham on the right side. It's not that I'm assuming this is going to be the game of the week, but this is the one with the most attributes to the playoff, based on how the rankings that I'm predicting they're going to be on Tuesday night. But the first time these two teams played, Auburn just completely demolished the Georgia Bulldogs. 40-17, I think that was the final score. But I see this game being closer this time around as well. But the question is star Auburn running back Kerryon Johnson going to be able to play in this one? I feel like it could be close if Kerryon Johnson doesn't play. But if he does play, I could see this being another double-digit victory by Auburn. But I feel like if he doesn't play, I think Georgia's got a shot. But what you're not forgetting is that Auburn's defense held Nick Chubb and Sony Michel to a season low. And as long as Auburn's defense can force Jake Fromm to have to throw the ball, I don't like Georgia's chances in this one. If they contain that running game, which is forcing Jacob Fromm to throw, I see Auburn probably winning by maybe 20 points in this one. But I'm going to say Auburn's going to win by, I'm going to say a touchdown to kind of be generous because neutral site, anything can really go on a neutral site. So I'm going with the Tigers in this one. I'm not saying what the final score is going to be, but I'm saying it could be from 7 to maybe 20 points. ACC championship game. The Miami Hurricanes take on the Clemson Tigers. Now, Miami, how are they going to respond after a loss on Black Friday to Pittsburgh, 24-14? When that final score, that just doesn't hide the fact that Miami just couldn't get going. Their defense did force two turnovers, but their offense couldn't do anything with those turnovers. And Clemson, they've been one of the hottest teams in college football. You could argue with either them or Oklahoma as which one could be the number one team. But I think Clemson's going to come out on top on this one. I'm just not sure how Miami's going to respond after that loss to Pittsburgh. And plus, I think Clemson's a been there, done that type of team. Miami just hasn't been there, done that yet. I'm picking Clemson based on the been there, done that situation. I think this game's going to be close. I could see this game coming down to a battle in the trenches. But of course, I'm giving the edge to Clemson here. I think it's going to be a low-scoring game. I don't see this being high-scoring at all. I'm going to say Clemson wins by 7. I'm going to say 24-17 is going to be your final score in that one. I'm going to say defensive battle for most of the game, but then Clemson comes out on top in the trenches. And finally, the Big Ten championship game, the Ohio State Buckeyes take on the Wisconsin Badgers. And a lot of eyes will be on this one, especially if you're a fan of the Alabama Crimson Tide or an SEC guy in general, because a lot of people are saying if Ohio State beats Wisconsin here, that could be the thing that gets Alabama in over the Buckeyes. But we'll talk more about it on Tuesday. We'll run some scenarios on this nice board right here on Tuesday night, right after the committee releases their newest rankings. But is JT Barrett going to be 100% ready to go? Because JT Barrett said he was in the press conference yesterday. Meanwhile, this is the biggest test Wisconsin's had all year. And I see this game being a low-scoring one as well. I don't see Ohio State winning by a big margin, but I feel like Ohio State, if they want to get to the college football playoff over, let's just say Alabama, I feel like they have to do the 2014 vibe and win it 49-0. I still think the Buckeyes are going to win this game. But I don't think it's going to be 49-0 like it was in 2014. I think it's going to be something like, I'm going to say maybe 27-21 or 34-27. I think Wisconsin will get some points on the board. But I'm picking Ohio State because Ohio State, they responded very well ever since that blowout loss to Iowa. Demolished Michigan State. They demolished whoever they played. But the question is, will the committee forgive Ohio State for the 31-point loss over Iowa if they were to beat Wisconsin, let alone maybe even convincingly, over Alabama, who just had the one loss on the road to Auburn in the Iron Bowl? We'll talk about it on Tuesday. Those are my conference championship weekend predictions. Like and share the channel. Share it with your friends and family. Comment your picks down below. I will see you on Tuesday night for the reaction to the new playoff rankings. We'll also run some more scenarios. I will see you then. Have a good night / day whenever you're watching. I will see you then.